Welcome to the NCDWI Guide podcast, where defenders of the Constitution assemble to prepare for courtroom battle and firm owners gather to develop marketing strategies that will revolutionize the practice of criminal defense. Here's your host, the NCDWI guy, Jake Minnick.
Hello, fellow freedom fighters, and welcome to episode 212 of the NCDWI Guy podcast. On today's episode, I have my friend Stephen Thomas on the podcast. I met Stephen at the Freedom Fighters Summit in October of last year. Stephen came to the summit with his managing partner, John McCormick. It was a blast hanging out with both of them. They have recently started a kind of driving defense or traffic and criminal piece of their practice. John has kind of been primarily focused on business development and business law as his primary practice area, but recently has gotten this traffic practice area off the ground. And not only doing that in Virginia, where they are based out of, but also carrying that practice over into North Carolina. So launching a new practice area in multiple states, and you get to hear some great suggestions for how they have launched that traffic defense program in Virginia and in North Carolina. Stephen is all about education. He is constantly soaking up CLEs, seminars, learning, and he really kind of speaks to the importance of advancing your education as an associate, as a young lawyer, both on the practice area specific topics as well as on the business front. Stephen just finished, and he talks about this, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration 24-hour course taught by Anthony Palacios down in Alpharetta. As of this recording, a couple weekends back, but it was fresh in his mind at the time that the podcast was recorded. So he shares some of the value from that learning. But Stephen really does focus a lot on how that is so critical to really being a valuable associate, is I've got to kind of maximize the amount of information that I can put in the tank. So just a ton of great value in today's episode. And it doesn't matter if you are 1 year out of law school or 10 years out of law school, if you are not focused on bringing leveling up, if you are not focused on getting better, improving your mind, figuring out how to do the practice of criminal defense better, you are losing ground to the competition. You are losing ground to everybody else, because leveling up is the only way to stay competitive, because everybody else around you is not slowing down. Everybody else around you is not just, okay, I've hit a certain number of years, I don't need to learn anything else. People are getting after it, which is great. I think that joint shared thought process for how can we make it better? How can we do what we do better? It's not only great for the client, but it's great for us individually. It's great for our teams, because that's really something to me that if education is not a part of your firm culture, and I'm talking about even if you're a firm of one, a practice of numero uno, if you've got only one person in your firm, if figuring out how to do what you do better is not part of your regular schedule, your regular programming, then you've got a big problem and you are losing ground. And that's why the Freedom Fighters Summit is so important. That's one of the reasons that this is such a passion project to me, because this is how we are not only going to stay competitive as a group, but really gain ground together, is by focusing on these important aspects of running a business: marketing, leadership, client experience, firm culture, community engagement. this is it. I mean, if we're not focused on these things, we are not going to remain relevant. And so, if you're looking at your calendar and you're thinking, "Oh my gosh, I'm going to have to set aside 2 days." I mean, if you're not in the Asheville area where we're based out of, if you're in the Asheville area, why are you? You should be coming. Like this is if you're listening to this podcast, criminal defense is specific to North Carolina, you should absolutely be taking advantage of this. But if you're outside of the area and it's like, well, I've got to book a hotel room, I'm going to have to figure out like how to get my phones answered, figure out a way to make those things happen. This is a legal conference designed for the solo practitioner, small criminal defense firm to help take your practice to the next level. This is the learning opportunity designed for you. And the reason that I'm doing this is because I love being a criminal defense lawyer. I love doing what I do. I love serving our clients. I love the team that we have at the office. And I want to both give back through this summit, but also very selfishly take away the amazing collection of minds, take away from the amazing collection of minds, new ideas for improving our practice. Very much hope to see you at the summit in September. Get ready for some knowledge to be put in the tank with this conversation from Stephen Thomas. Stephen delivers. Be ready to write down all of these great suggestions that he provides in today's episode. Hope that you really enjoy the conversation. Well, Stephen, I am super pumped to have you on the podcast. It has been a blast kind of getting to know you over the last few months here. I was laughing with you as we got onto the podcast because of your amazing setup. You got the mic, the headphones that really like threw me for a loop, the background. So definitely like the only guest that's had like a better podcast set up. So that's pretty epic. I love it.
Yeah, man. Well, hey, thanks for having me on. And what the listeners won't hear or see is this is take two because my internet cut out, which is evidence of why whenever we tried our podcast, you're right, it didn't work. And always some fun difficulties, But hey, thanks for having me on. Really excited to chat with you, and super honored you'd asked me to come on and talk. So
Yeah, no, I'm a blast of conversation, I think is laid out in front of us. So I'm going to kick it off with the NHTSA training that you just completed down in Georgia with Anthony Palacios. Did the 24-hour training. We had a couple of our lawyers down there, and just kind of, something that I really preach for anybody that is doing DWI to go to one of Anthony's classes. So just kind of curious of your big picture takeaways on that front.
yeah, it was great. I mean, the obvious technical learning that you get, the tests, what the steps are, all that stuff, great. It's so great, and just that alone was okay. This is going to really help my practice, right? I mean, I'm thinking of cases as I'm sitting there. I'm like, oh man, my guy in this city, that's going to help on this. But even more was I've always been fascinated, which in law school and learning about trial stuff in general, was the nexus between really, really technical knowledge, which DUIs can get pretty technical, right? And then even going through, explaining what nystagmus is to a jury. Like it sounds like it's a snore, but the nexus between the technical knowledge and then getting it across to a jury, that nexus has always been interesting to me. And I think probably every trial lawyer likes that a little bit, is my ability or the lawyer's ability to get this across to the jury in a way that not only they understand, but that's going to win, is really like cool. So there are a lot of examples of that from the instructors who were former law enforcement, but they also had some a couple lawyers come in. And it was so interesting. I was like, oh my gosh, like you break everything down this way and point this out in a very simple way to the jury, or it was really fascinating. So, I mean, even like I said, straight away, I've got a case now where I called my guy after doing, a couple more reviews to make sure I wasn't getting, putting the cart before the horse. But I was like, man, we got a good one here. I mean, these field sobriety tests are all jacked up. So it was great. It was great.
Was one of the lawyers that was presenting Steve Oberman?
No, it wasn't.
Okay.
I think his name was Mike Hawkins.
Oh
And
yeah,
he was a
Mike's great. Yeah,
yep,
yeah,
local, I
yeah,
guess Atlanta lawyer, but
yeah.
he was great. It was really, really interesting stuff.
Yeah, I went to one of, I think Anthony did. He's done, I think, pretty regularly. I don't know if it's every year, a DWI symposium, which is, just bringing in different attorneys on different topics. And Mike Hawkins did one, and I don't remember what he was talking about, to be honest about it. But he basically kind of put out there at the front end of his talk, like, you're not a good DUI, DWI lawyer until you've lost 10 in a row.
Yeah.
And I was like that has stuck with me. That's been one of those, like, mantras that has constantly, like, been, in the back of my mind. Like, you can't try just the point oh 0.07 cases. You've got to really push on,
Yeah.
other issues. So yeah, that quote has really been like a big part of my trial mindset.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, it's funny that when you said that, I said, I've heard that before. Wait, I think I heard you say that on one of your episodes. And I was like, man, that's so interesting. So clearly that stuck. And yeah, I mean, you bringing up the annual symposium is my daily reminder. I've been checking to see when they're going to put the dates out because I want to go. So I
Yeah.
definitely want to go. And so not only was it a good training just for what it was, but I was like, man, I got to keep doing whatever they're putting out because it was super helpful. So huge proponent of it. I loved it.
That's awesome. Yeah, great to hear. Well, I guess, kind of to set the stage a little bit for what we're talking about, we've been, kind of going through this series of kind of young leaders in the criminal defense realm, and kind of like what are some of the strategies and things coming down the pike for criminal defense lawyers? What are opportunities, big hurdles? And so, kind of set the stage on your side of things. Tell us just a little bit about kind of what got you into law school in the first place, and then into the world of criminal defense.
Yeah. Well, I don't have one of those moments that I've got friends who, one friend I'm thinking about, she's a prosecutor and I wanted to be a prosecutor since I was 10 years old. I watched this movie or my family kept telling me, and came from a family of lawyers and all this. I don't have that.
That's
On the,
It's so funny that you say that, because Banks, who I did a podcast
uh,
recording with yesterday, said the exact same thing. He was like, "This is not like a
yeah,
movie situation where, like, there was this, like, I wanted to see justice because my uncle got hit by a drunk driver."
yeah.
It's
Yeah, I
like-
mean, totally. And small diversion, but people ask, like, I've been married for coming on 3 years, and we've been together for almost 8. And people ask me, like, oh, like, what was the moment? Like, did you know at the beginning your wife was the one you wanted to marry? I was like, no, we broke up like 4 times, like, and she would say the same thing. But it's funny that's with law. I was like, I had some bent toward it, but it wasn't this one moment. But I guess for me, it was, I always have had, and I had great parents. Always, my parents are awesome, and they've always been good supporters. But they by no means were perfect, but man, were they good parents, and for a lot of
Yeah,
reasons. And
that's
they
awesome.
really got me and my sister at a young age. It was very clear to us that there wasn't this huge division of class between people. Obviously, as we got older, we realized like how the world worked and these sort of realities. But they were very much like, hey, your fellow person's your fellow person, and you're helping them. You know what I mean? And so, like, my mom works in prisoner reentry, right? So at a very young age, I was kind of familiar with and okay with people who have been at different points of the justice system, right? And so helping them, some stayed, my mom had a business like that. And so and then as I got into high school, into college, I always like was involved in something trying to help others, whether it was a ministry thing or otherwise. And huge credit to my parents for that. But so as I get into high school, I was involved in more sort of government things, right? Like internships or classes. So I really thought that's something I wanted to do. I was like, oh, I'm going to get involved in government, right? And so it wasn't until probably later into college when I started thinking law school. And the law school I went to, Regent down here in Virginia Beach, never wanted to go there. Never. I was like, that's the last place on my list. I want to go other places. Well, it was very easy for me because it was the only law school I got into. And so it was super easy where I decided where I want to go. So I went there. Best 3 years ever. Absolutely loved it. Just absolutely loved it. And so,
Just
that's,
quickly
yeah.
on that front, I talked recently with Kevin Marsiliot about Campbell Law, because I've kind of like had, noticed from attorneys that are at our office and some other lawyers across the state that I've run into that for whatever reason, Campbell has like got a great knack for producing trial lawyers and people
Mhm.
that are really good. Just really academically prepared lawyers, very good in the courtroom in terms of trial practice. They have one of the best trial teams in the country, but like not everybody that I've met at from Campbell was on the trial team. So there's something that they're doing, that's kind of very much preparing. I've kind of sensed the same thing without really having too many people that have deep dived on Regent. So tell us a little bit about the school there.
Yeah, I love Regent. It was awesome. I had a great experience not only learning the law, but such a good community there. So that was really great. And the thing too is there's so many people locally. I guess that's in some ways sort of like Campbell, where Raleigh's bigger, so maybe there's more like surrounding counties and everything like that. But I find a lot of Regent grads around here, right? And so that outside community stays involved with the law school,
Yeah.
which is great. And so there's a lot of giving back and teaching, mentoring. But I just felt like we really learned the law well there. Interestingly, some schools do evidence. You get some evidence your first year. You get some criminal law your first year. We don't touch that until the first year's over, which is kind of interesting. And so I did trial stuff all through law school. I'm like, man, these other schools know it better than us, at least in some evidence stuff. Well, I didn't take it right until I was in my second year. But I felt like the devotion they gave to bigger topics for longer times ended up being pretty instructive. But also the trial team there, I'll put this plug out there. Marcus Mitchell, his wife, the other, I help coach, some other people that help coach. The two of them, Marcus and his wife Ariel Mitchell, they have been all in on trial stuff since they graduated. They
That is
sacrificed
awesome.
tons of their life. But and I coached a team. I was on a couple of teams, and it is just a slog for months. And it's like really intense of trial prep. And really, I was like, man, I got out there. I was like, I know this stuff cold. Like, this is great.
Yeah.
I know how to do that. And also getting, there's so many cities around here in Hampton Roads. There's like seven local cities, right? So you get a lot of prosecutor, public defender practicums, all this stuff to just hop in and get that experience. So the experience as a whole was just great, and I certainly felt prepared, and so I would definitely recommend the school to
Yeah,
anybody.
that's awesome. I think that it's hard, over the years we've kind of tried to figure out how to identify, good attorney candidates for working at the office. And so you're trying to find like things that are, markers of being, a good fit or kind of prepared for the work. And one of the markers that definitely has seemed to be like a good indicator is being on a trial team, whether
Yeah,
that's on like a competitive trial team or just kind of like being very involved in like trial ad classes at a school. Cause it really is one of the few places, unless you're doing a internship or whatnot. But even then, you kind of only get to touch so much because it's not like you're
right.
just gonna, come into some random office for a few months and get to really like mess around with things. It's like,
Yeah, or you're just doing research,
they're
right?
just doing research, which
Yeah,
is kind of similar to law school. But the trial team is really, it's like this is really preparing you for practice. And obviously it's not a direct translation into every courtroom in every state, but it
right.
very much is teaching the skills and the practice points, because so much of it is presentation. So much of what
Yep.
you're doing in the courtroom is just how you're moving around, the things that you're saying, the way you're carrying yourself, objecting with clarity. Like there's just so many
Yeah,
like great pointers that are coming out through that.
I totally agree. There's, I think some of the cases I did was like, oh, a big criminal trial or a robbery trial, was the law school cases for trial competitions. And so, yeah, that's in a weird way. You're doing that when you're in law school and you're like, I won't be on one of these cases for years into practice. So it's like, man, is this really how it goes? And all this stuff. Not exactly right. That you're right. It's not 100% translation right off the bat, but it's the competitions are not about the law. The competitions are about presentation, in
Yes.
it,
Yeah.
not to be in a negative sense, but kind of a dog and pony show about,
Yeah.
who can present the best. Well, in court, especially I know, District Court North Carolina, General District Court Virginia is it's confidence, it's presentation. If you can
It's,
tie some really good, like,
yeah.
all right, I've got like a 70% right argument here and some equitable principle and a statute here and a case. And then, oh, my client's got good mitigation for this. And you're just confident about it and you have a good relationship with the people there. I mean, you can win your cases like that. And it's not saying you're pulling one over on somebody, but it is about presentation, confidence, and all those things. So I certainly learned that in and preparation too. Of course, I learned that a lot in the trial stuff. So that was super helpful for me.
Yeah. I think the presentation side of things is so important and something that really just does get lost. I did moot court and kind of looking back, I
Mm-hmm.
wish I had done trial team versus moot court. Just it was kind of, based on nothing. Like there
Yeah,
wasn't
yeah,
any
yeah,
anyway, but I will say, like, at some of the moot court competitions, it was incredible to see the way that, certain teams carried themselves. I think
yeah.
I was at Charlotte Law New School. We were kind of like finding our way and kind of making things up, in terms of like what the program looked like. And some of these schools that have been around forever, their trial teams, they're walking in there with like a 40-page brief, like
Yeah.
line for line memorized. There's no notes, and that's like intentional of like, just like this power play of like,
Yep.
just I've got every answer that you need. And then, I mean, just the style really is clear. And it's kind of crazy because there's only so much style that you can bring
Right.
behind a podium. There's no like really back and forth. It's, Q&A, but you're not really moving around in the space. And so,
Yep.
everything though from the presentation side of things really did, I think, make a big difference.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, that part of it really does translate, like you just said, into the
Totally
courtroom.
agree. Totally agree.
Well, I think, in terms of coming out of law school, what kind of led you down the path of criminal defense, or really kind of working with John, because he's such a interesting and cool person in the kind of business realm and the traffic side of things that he's developed. It's really cool seeing what you guys are doing. So, what kind of led down the criminal defense path?
Yeah, well, I'll start sort of, yeah, my how did I get there and then and touch on working with him. So again, sort of circular for me in a weird way. How I ended up doing a lot of traffic, DUI, and some criminal stuff is I went to law school, wasn't really sure. I told you like, a little government, maybe I want to like do some in government. And I got in, I said, okay, I want to be like a prosecutor, I think is what I want to be. I didn't really fully know what that meant yet,
Yeah.
but I was like, maybe like prosecutor or like work for the FBI, so I was like, I don't know what I said, sounds cool. And then, went on a little longer and I said, well, I wonder, I love sports. I said, can I be a sports lawyer? Like, can I work for a team?
Somebody, I took sports and entertainment law
Yeah.
at Charlotte, and it was taught by like the general counsel for the Charlotte Bobcats, now
Yeah.
Hornets, and
Yeah.
that was like so fun. It was like, this is,
Yeah.
I don't know where this goes, but it looks cool. So
I know. And so I was like, well, what do you even do with that? And so kind of was working that out for a little and this one lawyer, he worked for a team and he said, look, he said, you need to just focus on being an amazing lawyer. And then whatever, down the line you may want as far as career opportunities, it will be there for amazing
yeah.
lawyers. Right. So I said, that's really good. So that kind of fizzled out. Still a dream of mine, I will say. But then I said, oh, maybe I want to do, I got involved in Business Law Society, and I said, well, I'm going to do business. I'm going to be a business lawyer, and then all that kind of stuff. And now I kind of slowly tick my way back to criminal defense and the criminal side. At one point, I was like, I want to be a criminal lawyer. I want to be a public defender. My wife was not a fan of that, but but
I just have this image in my mind now that I can't get out, Stephen, of you like talking to a client in the hallway that's like charged with a speeding ticket, and you just being like, "Help me, help you."
exactly right. You're right. And so, how it kind of transitioned for me back to criminal traffic DUI stuff was actually getting involved here with John and with the firm. And so I actually was always set, well, not always, about halfway through law school, I was very set on wanting to go live in North Carolina, live and work in North Carolina, be licensed there, do that. My wife and I had no ties there, but we said because we have no ties there or really strong ties in Hampton Roads yet, our family's in Virginia, but not one central place. So let's go. Let's do like North Carolina. Let's do it. So I worked at the Court of Appeals downtown in Raleigh, and I was about half the summer there in 21. I was like, all right, I'm dead set that this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to start there, then I'll work somewhere. Like that's what I'm going to do. And then I came back and we got married and I wasn't working and she wasn't working. And I saw a posting online for a McCormick Law paid intern. I said, I don't care what law they do. I'm in, right? Paid intern. So I called John. We did a Zoom call and hit it off. And so I started. Cool.
Yeah,
And
awesome.
I said, man, this is just good, good experience. And then, at the end of the summer, he said, hey, man, like, would you be interested in working here after law school? I said, well, I would, but I want to go to North Carolina. This is Norfolk, Virginia. And the idea at the time was, well, we've got this satellite office in Raleigh. Why don't you work here for about a year or so, get some mentorship, some training, and then you can go down there and then do your own thing and kind of be the boots on the ground for that office that's already there. I said, that sounds great. And so I signed up, and throughout the last year of law school, I got, it was very, very clear. I was like, I really want to do litigation. I want to be in the courtroom, I want to do something like that. And then John had the idea at the beginning of 22, let's start a traffic defense practice. And so it was me, John, and another lawyer who has since transitioned out. And that kind of started up and everything. And toward toward the end of the third year of school, I was like, now, what am I going to be doing in an office in Virginia with a license for another state while we have a new thriving traffic defense practice going? What the heck am I going to be doing? And so we kind of changed course last minute. I said, okay, never mind. I'm going to take the Virginia bar. So I changed course. I do that. And my friend who is the lawyer who kind of was along with John starting up with the traffic defense stuff, 2 weeks before the bar, he's like, hey, buddy, I'm leaving to go do something else. And I was like, well, I guess it's on me.
Is that Patrick?
Pat Trumpeter. Yeah.
Pat. Yeah.
Yep.
I
We
had
went
a
to law school
conversation
together.
with him about a year and a half ago. Great guy. Really,
Yeah.
really cool guy. So
He's awesome. Love him. We went to and graduated law school together. He's one of my best buddies in life. And so, but he was like, hey, I'm transitioning out. He works for Regent now. He's meant for that role. But I was like, dang, man, I'm really gonna have to take it up. So, but I passed, got licensed, sworn in like 3-4 days later, and was hit the ground running. And so, kind of got involved in that. And so I was splitting between doing mostly traffic and then doing the civil litigation here. So kind of feet in both. And I still help with the civil litigation on the bigger cases, but I've been pretty much tailoring it all toward traffic, DUI, low level sort of misdemeanors and stuff that's just attached to traffic stuff, done some other higher level criminal stuff just a few times, but that's kind of where I'm trying to focus myself. I really find an interest there. I think that's where my skills are best used, at least this time being, it's where I feel they are. And I just love it. I love being in court, and it's a crazy opportunity that I've been in court as much as I have, but I'm not at like a prosecutor, public defender job, which is very rare.
Yeah, it is.
That's rare at a law school, is you get to go to court virtually every day. I mean, I could it's probably a dozen days over, my time being licensed, almost 2 years that I haven't been in court. Right.
Yeah,
So that's
awesome.
pretty phenomenal, not being at like a government office.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's also really cool that you kind of come into the firm that is like expanding into this new practice area and also kind of like pushing that into a new state, which both of those things are, trials in terms of like expanding new practice area, moving into a new, county even, but nonetheless like new state. And so,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure that you've gotten to kind of be very hands-on with that as well in terms of kind of pushing the practice area. So yeah, any lessons that you guys have learned or that you specifically have learned in terms of developing the traffic side of things would be, yeah, just really interesting.
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the interesting things, and I'm not, I mean, I can see even down into the first district of North Carolina, there's some counties that are pretty close. But one interesting thing about Hampton Roads specifically is within like an hour radius, if you just did a circle around where our office is, there's probably 10 different cities or jurisdictions
Yeah,
that you
that's
can go
crazy.
to. And so I can walk to Norfolk, right? It's 5 minute drive to Portsmouth, and then it's almost a 30 to 40 minute drive to Virginia Beach. And every place has different rules. They have different this. And so one thing that's been, a struggle, but we've really gotten a good hold on it recently. And it's something that I see of like, man, this piece can take a practice area like this to the next level is intake and scheduling
Yes.
because I was telling John this the other day. I said, man, I can triple my traffic volume, triple it, so long as we have the scheduling so down pat to where continuances and putting stuff on like the same day. It's no
Yes.
difference to me if I do one reckless driving or 20 at the
100%.
same, and so nailing that down has been interesting because it's like, man, that's not, you need multiple attorneys for. That's like if the staff and the attorney can work out, hey, this is exactly what's needed for, there's one jurisdiction around here. You cannot get a continuance over the phone, over fax, over mail. Someone has to be in person. That's just how it
Yes.
goes.
Yeah.
Whereas the other places, fax, call, email, it gets done. So that part of it is really interesting. And then locking that in, saying, oh man, like, you can really maximize a couple of lawyers, you know what I mean? And the lawyers, of course, can be like, man, I'm like getting huge caseload, huge book of
Yeah.
business. This is great. I'm getting experience. So that's been interesting,
Yeah, couple of quick thoughts on
Yeah.
that front because I think that that's so critical, the scheduling element of things.
Hmm.
I think, you know, as a whole, we're known as a group of procrastinators. And so,
Yeah.
if you're kind of flying by the seat of your pants, which is how I lived and breathed for a pretty
Yeah.
long time in practice, you're responding to like the calendar of the day
Yep.
and you can get through it. You can do it that way, but you save yourself ridiculous amount of time by looking like 3 or 4 weeks out. Like this is to me is like an immediately like implementable way to, improve your practice and also your life, quality of life. If
Yeah.
you can do what you just said by just a little bit of planning, reaching out to the DA's office and getting, 3 cases that are on 3 different dates onto one, you probably saved yourself like 4 to 5 hours, just with that. And sometimes it feels a little bit like a strain in the moment, but it's like, well, that only took me 10 minutes to move the case, whether I like had to text the DA or I was already out there for this other case. And so I know I had, this
Yep.
this case coming up in 2 weeks, and I'm just going to move it out to the one that I have in four. Like, it's just such a huge deal. And then it also is such a power play in the courtroom
Hmm.
because the DA, other lawyers, your clients see you having this big docket, right? It's like,
Yep.
he's got like 5 cases on right now. It's
Yeah.
like, well, yeah, I haven't had anything else all month. Like it's
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
this day, but it looks good in the courtroom. And so as your client is like sitting in the courtroom and sees, you're working with these multiple officers or that this DA on these multiple cases, it's like, well, this is somebody that's established here. So I think there's like a not only a practical value of it, but like a power play value element of it.
For sure. And also, um, there's some realities of how district court practice works that, you don't know in law school. And maybe, if you work at like a private office, but also if you work at a, like public defender or prosecutor, you're in one place the whole time and, you don't really have to choose or the business is there. Right. And so with private practice doing stuff like that is the clerks, the officers, the prosecutors, all that, the way that just the day-to-day functions, the logistics work, that's a huge part of it. And why I say that is, yeah, like scheduling continuances, all that kind of stuff. Man, you start like you're like, hey, when they see me, they know I'm efficient. I'm good at my job. I'm in and out. I treat people, and then of course treating people with kindness, respect is like having those
Yes.
relationships. But the scheduling aspect almost is like oh, this guy doesn't just like wait around. He shows up sloppy. Oh, I need a continuance. Oh, and then he shows up. Oh,
Yeah.
I need another. It's like, oh no, he's already worked it out. It's so easy when he shows up. Boom, boom, boom. He's got his stuff. It's not guilty
Yes.
or it's no like boom. He's on it. And so that like sort of builds your credibility with all the players in that
Yes.
system. So the scheduling part of it is huge. I mean, I found that's a huge thing that can really take off in certain jurisdictions. And then I think for me is just learning how to handle clients has been an interesting part, and the difference between a business practice and a traffic criminal defense practice, how we brand the practice, how we communicate with clients, what's the right amount of touch points to have with traffic, DUI, clients like that versus having someone who's got a long-standing 2-year long civil case, like learning that part of it and then maximizing, say we want to be so available to clients from in one stance, but we also don't, we don't want to be too annoying with them. We don't want to let our guard down and think they can call and talk whenever they want. But having that practice and looking out there and saying, man, we can do this so much differently and so much better than a lot
Yes.
of places do that. Oh man, these people, they're the first on, when I see them on there on the Google reviews, I click, oh, 24/7, great, call them. And their systems are efficient. They have text enabling, they have this, they have that, like all that kind of stuff. And I know who my lawyer is. I talk to the lawyer, I see the lawyer, all that kind of stuff. And that's been fascinating for me to learn. But it's
Yes.
also something that clearly I'm like, man, this is really what can get a practice area and a firm churning, is being like that, being apart, kind of standing apart from the competition in a sense.
Yeah, 100%. There was a lot to unpack there. I think one of the, we've been kind of talking kind of on this series a lot because we've been looking at like how is the practice of law going to change over the next 5 to 10 years, and e-courts has repeatedly come up because that's a
Mm-hmm.
big functional change that's going on currently across the state. And so one of the potential benefits to me of e-courts is the ability to kind of negotiate with prosecutors outside of the courtroom in a much more manageable way. I mean, whether that's being in the same office with a prosecutor or even by phone, like basically being like, hey, here's the case I want to talk to you about, or, here's the, do you have, 15 minutes when you're in your office that you can give me a call about these 10 cases? And
Mm-hmm.
now, maybe we can knock out, these 10 traffic charges without it having to go on the calendar and be a part
Yep.
of a docket and clogging things up. You're doing this from like the ease of your office, and it's a you've got all of the documents right there in front of you. So I do think that that really is going to create, it's going to be a mess as it's implemented initially in each practice area. But I do think it's going to be one of those things that over time can be used in kind of that same way of like time saving for yourself. So
Yeah.
yeah, I just love all those points that you just ran through.
Yeah, no, certainly. I mean, and I've even seen, I may be kind of mischaracterizing it a bit, but I do think when I was looking into some of the e-court stuff, because I don't do as much down in North Carolina, but I do a decent amount. And I was like, oh man, they're piloting this thing that people who've received traffic citations, reckless speeding, anything, can submit everything themselves online and then submit it to the prosecutor can do one way or the other. I'm like, golly, man, that's like, how are lawyers going to adjust to that? Like where are we in that process? All that kind of stuff. So that change, I mean, Virginia will probably be the last to do it if ever, I bet. So, but but that part's interesting. But yeah, really having a handle on all that process stuff from an internal like law firm standpoint has been fascinating to me. How do we churn and process and do things so well that as a firm we can be so efficient and help as many people as possible? But then the client facing part is, what's the experience like, and is our experience better than what they're going to get somewhere else? Because they don't really care about, I mean, some do, well, how many cases have you done and how long have you been a lawyer? I mean, of course there's that in their mind, but if the process is so good, it's so undeniably good, then they already know, like, oh, these are lawyers, they're licensed, they do this kind of work. They aren't sitting there picking you apart like, how long have you done this? Are
Yes.
you
Yeah.
as experienced? Do you have do you have 7 awards like him, or do you just have 6? They're just like, oh my gosh, you're confident. This process is amazing. This is great. So
Yes.
that process part has been fascinating for me.
Yeah, I think, just on the client experience end, we kind of focus solely in criminal defense. We have done some other practice areas in the past. But I think that maybe potential disadvantage of that is that as you do multiple practice areas, you kind of have to respond to different clients as a whole in a different way, kind of bring the client experience in a different way. And so I think maybe one of the advantages that you all have, and kind of curious to get your thoughts on this, is kind of being a firm that kind of really had a model for business, law, and people that are interested in kind of growing their businesses and trying to kind of be self-facing to that crowd. I would imagine that there's kind of like a little bit of like a style that is required for attracting clients from the business realm. And so I'm curious, like, how that then maybe translates to y'all's benefit when, moving into the traffic defense arena, because I think that client experience as a whole isn't something that the criminal defense bar focuses, very heavily on. So yeah, just kind of curious about that.
Yeah, and the most of my comments will start with this is, John is so good at this stuff. I mean, he
Yeah,
really
he
is. And
seems like he really is. Yeah.
he's just a beast with it. He really is. And a lot of it is, I don't want to speak for him, but I think he would say that he enjoys being a business person more than he does a lawyer.
Yes.
I think he just happens to be a lawyer. Ever so often I'll joke with him and I'll be like, you're not really a lawyer. That's what I'm doing. But his mindset about stuff, and yeah, I've really learned so much. But one interesting difference is, well, I would say one interesting thing is everything is different between the business client and the traffic or DUI defense client. Pretty much like everything in a way, and it's not so drastic, but just looking at things like, what does our website look like? What does how long is the engagement with this person versus who's got a business dispute versus the DUI case. Where are they at in their life? Sometimes they're in a great spot. I'm starting a business.
Yes.
Other people are like, I just got pulled over for DUI, right?
Yes. Yeah.
This is my first criminal charge ever. So it's so many things that are different. I mean, initial consultation, paid for big business disputes, free for DUI consults, right? Like, and then having, low touch points with clients from a DUI or traffic perspective, low enough to where, it's not too much on us, it's not too much on them, but enough to where they feel we are, updating them. They're part of the process. Even just, the website is so different. We have a completely separate thing for our driving defense law, which is not the name of the law firm, right? And so
Right.
everything is, I'll go to events and people say, wait, I've seen you all the time. Who are you with? And they look at my name tag and I say, it's I've heard of driving defense law before, and so how we market that and put that out there, the money that we spend on dollars for ads looks different, like every single part of it. I don't want to get in the habit of texting and calling clients all the time. But the fact of the matter is, if it's a traffic DUI type of case, it's just easier and sometimes more frequent, and I have to draw my boundaries, but that stuff's easier, so many things about how we handle each of them are different, that the process you may go through on or even, here's a good one is, people call into, hey, I have a business dispute. I need to set up a consultation with a lawyer. I'm going to pay for the consultation and we'll send documents ahead of time. And I'm not knocking the door down to call them back because we've already got it set up and, things aren't going to go crazy if they don't talk to me in the next 4 days. A DUI client comes through. I mean, I'm on it. If I'm on something else and I miss the call from our answering service, I see the notes. Oh, DUI I'm talking to them. I'm like, I got to text them in 5 minutes because if I don't text them in 5 minutes, they're gone. That's money out the door.
Yeah.
Those things are so different. The clients
Yes.
that we're dealing with, their problems, the timeline, everything is so different. Even just, down to how you charge it. It's all so different. And that's what's fascinating to me. But really, a lot of John's experience, acumen, seeing how things have been done right and wrong at all that, he worked at numerous different places before he started this. really has helped kind of fashion that. And I've just learned a ton from it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think, kind of my next, question for you is how can an associate help grow the business? And I think one thing that you just said, about kind of call response time,
Hmm.
I think that, that's it sometimes is the easiest, things that are the most beneficial. And I
Hmm.
think that that's one of those things that, for our lawyers at the firm, that's something that we really stress, but you can see, you know, individual attorneys that are just better at that immediate response.
Yep.
Blake Marcus, who's here in the Asheville office, covers Hendersonville and kind of southern counties and up north of Asheville. But he is great at, like, if he's in court and gets like a note in his email that we just got a new, DWI lead, he's texting that person like right away, being like,
Oh
"Hey,
yeah.
in court, I'll give you a call later." But like, it's like that. I'm here, like, even if
Yep.
there's not ability to have an
Stop
actual phone
looking.
call.
Stop searching on Google. You
So
know?
I mean, that to me is like one of the main ways that any attorney at the office, partner, or associate can really like add incredible value, is on the cases that are coming in that you're going to handle just immediate response. But anything else that you could suggest in terms of, how can an associate at a firm really provide value to the business?
Yeah, I think, one thing, another sort of kudos to John, he's been very honest with me and which has been great. So, when this before I started working, I think he said, look, the reality is that young lawyers, it's not like, the owners of the firm understand, hey, every young lawyer I hire, right out of law school, usually I'm not expecting that they're going to be a gigantic money maker for me
Yes.
for at least a certain amount of time. And so for me, that was not offensive. I was like, this is so valuable for me to know and that's the advice I would say, like how an associate can help, you know, be an added value is understand, like operate in reality, right? Like operate that I know that I am not, gonna swoop in on this huge case and oh man, like this young lawyer is great. He's won, all these huge jury trials against insurance companies. He's bringing so much money. It's not going to happen. It's
Yeah.
just not. And so like I'm operating in reality and saying in these first couple of years, here's what I can do is I can become an expert in my field. I can say, hey, I know you're pouring value assets into me, like for trainings and stuff. So I'm going to exhaust them and I'm going to get every training possible, every CLE possible, everything that I can, watching court, doing all this stuff, looking for mentors, networking, so that when it's, that couple years goes by where it's like, all right, this was the training phase. Now let's see, like, can you really produce? You're going to have so much momentum. So that's one part of it.
Yeah,
But
that's
also, I
awesome.
think I've had to say, okay, I need to see where am I strong where the more senior attorneys are weak. What I mean is not necessarily skill level, is they're going to have more skill, more knowledge, and all that stuff than me, but the answering call responses is good. John is
Yes.
so much more busy than me.
Yep.
He's much more busy. Got a lot of things going on. And so, I open my calls on the weekends from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. I'm like, if somebody wants to schedule a call on the weekend, 2 hours, and I usually get 2 to 3 calls, so 45 minutes of time. People are ready to pay on the weekend. They're
Yeah.
at home. They're like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
I finally have some free time. And so it's like that's very fruitful.
Yeah.
And so I could do things like that, sort of saying, okay, well, here's what I can provide that John literally cannot. He's got too much going on, family, school board, job, all that. And I'm like, I have the flexibility, I have the time. And
Yeah,
also
that's
just, I mean,
awesome.
as cliche as this is just hard work. I'm very, very proud to say, I think in the 2 years that I've been working, I've missed dinner with my wife like twice, maybe 3 times, right? And due to work, maybe due to other things, but and that's great. So I'm working hard, but I'm not advocating do your 100+ hours a week
Yeah.
and wow,
Yeah.
you've got to be a monster. Like, but work hard. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I want people to know that I'm usually the last one here or that I'm working and I'm doing it. So working really hard and just not being afraid to also be somewhat aggressive, but knowing that like I need to get the okay from from my superior lawyer, but I'm going to be super aggressive. Let them rein me in, because I feel like John has been very clear to me. He's like, I want you to be more like aggressive and proactive and make me rein you in versus me have to be like, come on, do something.
Yeah, I love all that. And I think, one of the key things to me, and it's almost kind of flipping the script in terms of from what you just said, basically thinking, well, if I am a managing partner at a firm trying to bring in an associate, how can I get that associate to succeed? Part of it is just great communication, which is what
Mm,
kind of you just uh, uh, laid out from the flip side of things. But if you know what the expectations are, it
mm,
becomes much easier to be like, okay, this is where I'm supposed to be spending my time. If you know that, like, hey, I'm not expecting, immediately we're going to be in the green on your salary, or in this new location that we're setting up, or whatever it might be. The goal is to go to these trainings. Like, I really
hmm
want you to take advantage of the educational opportunities. We need to learn this new practice area, or I want you to kind of, get really grounded in these cases. And so, I want you to get on the court appointed list so you can start getting FaceTime,
Right.
with the local bar and prosecutor and all of these people in the courtroom. I think that really kind of resonated with me of everything that you just said, is really giving clear expectations of what are, what's the goal here. And
hmm
so that great communication between the people on the team is really kind of what can make this thing, thrive.
Yeah. And one last thing is, on the what can you do with your time that maybe your other lawyer cannot, your managing partner or something cannot. Yeah, I can get on the court appointed list, get that FaceTime, or my managing lawyer cannot. And one thing that I think is amazing for the firm and it's amazing for the attorney is if you're a younger attorney, you have more time to hound people for reviews because when you
Yes,
have
that's
when you
awesome.
have Google reviews that have, like, if I've got Google reviews that have my name in it, number one, we're going up on Google. That's good for the firm. Number two, my name is in it and people see and they call, hey, I'm trying to reach Stephen Thomas for my reckless driving or for my DUI. And
Yeah.
so it's like
Yes.
business is coming to the firm. I'm building my brand. I'm helping the firm with reviews. I mean, use honestly just on every case being like, I'm gonna work so hard to get a Google review can really, I think, be something amazing that a first year, second year lawyer can do.
That is huge. And again, it is, it's I think what I would say with that is it's one of these like simple but not easy, um,
hmm
you know, uh, pieces of advice, because it is simple to request a Google review, or you might be like, well, yeah, of course you're going to do that, but it takes a lot of time, and there's, if you've got to follow up sometimes, multiple times with the client to leave a review, and it's not because they're like dogging you or they don't want to leave you a good review. It's just because people get busy with their lives, and this thing
Yeah.
is in the rear view mirror. And in all honesty, they do want to help. And I think that, almost couching it, there's, again, I won't be able to think like the best verbiage for this on the fly, but I think, in terms of, there's all kinds of like little ways that I think you're more likely to get a Google review. And some of it is really kind of like playing to the real value that this provides, because, I don't think clients a lot of times understand how valuable a Google review is. Like,
Yeah.
I'm constantly preaching this to the team because I want to make sure everybody here understands how
Yeah.
valuable
Yeah.
like a Google review is. But one of the, things that, Banks was sharing yesterday, and that I think, we've kind of started to incorporate some of this language is, we're a small business. This really helps,
Yeah.
our small business, because it's kind of like, this is the way for people to kind of help their local businesses, kind of compete. The same thing, from the associate standpoint, like, this is something that, you know, is really, helping me at the firm. Like,
Yeah.
this is something that I've been, you could even almost say like tasked with, is like kind of,
Yeah.
reaching out for these kind of things. And so, this really helps me out if you do that. I think that the more a client knows this is actually useful as opposed to like I'm completing a survey that's a waste of time. Like,
Yeah.
you get those follow-up calls when you're on like a call with a charter or whatever, and it's like,
Yeah.
please leave us your feedback. It's like, click. No, I'm not.
Yeah. Would you
Waste my
mind
time.
staying on the line for, yeah, no, I'm not doing that. And yeah, and it's true. How many times have I left a restaurant and they say, hey, if you liked our service, give us a
Yeah,
review. I throw the
yeah,
receipt away. And now
yeah.
I think differently a little
Yeah.
bit, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So true. Yeah. That's awesome. Well, to kind of look a little bit towards the future, what do you think are some of the biggest challenges that face criminal defense lawyers right now?
It's good. It's a good one. I mean, taking it from my perspective of being of this generation, but also being a little younger in the practices. I think some of them the struggles are traditional, but maybe they have a little bit of a different flavor. I think connecting with today's audience and or client base can be a struggle. I think that people there's always things about people that are the same, just human nature. But I think that what a client base was like in 1990s, early 2000s, 2010s, whatever, or maybe even in the early teens is different than 2024 and going forward, how they interact, how they communicate, what they're looking for, all that kind of stuff. That's a challenge, I think. It's just times change. And so I think, like I said, it's a problem that'll probably always persist. It'll just have a different flavor because of where we're at. I think also just because we recently found an amazing staff person. She's our traffic paralegal. She's amazing. But I think finding great staff is
Yes.
is because great staff can literally take a firm just into the stratosphere. I mean, it can
100%.
go,
Yeah.
and so I think that's always a difficult thing. And this isn't bagging on everybody in my generation, but my generation and 5 years younger and maybe a little older, but are sometimes just not adults. And that stinks. Is like, I know there's people who are of my generation, close to my age, and I'm like, man, you're making us look bad. Why aren't you guys just being adults, doing your jobs and going out there and killing it? And so I think and this isn't a thing of like, oh, no, nobody wants to work these days, but I do think there's a little truth to that idea. The old curmudgeonly folks who say no one wants to work these days. It's not true of the entire generation they're referencing, but there's some truth to it. And I do think that sometimes it can become harder to find like really good staff. And so find them, you want to keep them, right? Um, I think too is that balancing the desire to try and be really cutting edge. We have to roll with the times. Social media is so big, AI is so big, all that kind of stuff. But I think also it never, never, never is going to be lost on people for authenticity, right? I mean, authenticity, just normal, the traditional things of how humans are wired and how you connect with humans is never going to change. But it's true that, we are changing as a society in so many
Yes.
ways. So you have to be on the cutting edge, but you can't be like, I literally put on a VR headset and AI runs my law firm completely. It's like you can't be that far, but you got to find
Yeah.
a healthy balance. And I think finding that balance while still delivering the great services to clients and all that is something that's just, going to be challenging.
Yeah, 100%. I think, in terms of responding to client needs, in our current day and age that, that you kind of pointed out, that really we're struggling with and trying to kind of like figure out how to kind of make this easier is text messaging and responding to like online messages and keeping it in that platform. Like I
Hmm.
think in the past it's been, you know, if we've gotten messages through the website in the in our online forums, it's kind of all been about, uh, we're here to help, but kind of give us a call. And so we're kind of directing clients to kind of go to a medium that wasn't where they reached out to us because we just don't have kind of like the intake set up to
Right.
respond on that platform. And I think that is really a powerful change agent.
Mm.
There's going to be more and more people that are reluctant to do a phone call versus, basically create an attorney client relationship straight through a messaging platform and
Yeah.
just like, how can I get this done quickly with basically, while I'm at work and messaging, or, I'm at home and I've got too many other things going on, and I can respond when it's good for me to respond. And that's what text messaging allows, or, it's too loud, got a bunch of kids, whatever it might be. It's like, it's just, this is not like the conducive way to conduct business. And I think that really is, if you can jump on that now, I think you are going to do yourself massive dividends,
Yeah.
down the road. And we're trying to work through that. Like, this is like kind of a moment where the preferred platform of communication is moving from texting, or to texting. And one of the kind of last things I'll say on this front is, like, when COVID hit and people were doing a lot more virtual um, video meetings and that type of thing, we started to try to offer virtual consultations and
Hmm.
push that a little bit. And I was like, man, if I can get FaceTime with somebody, I bet that I can improve my chance of
Oh yeah.
landing clients. And I just could not get anybody to buy into that process. And it's like, I don't want to spend, like, phone calls easier. Like, I'd rather
Yeah.
just do the phone call. So it's like, I was trying to put an additional barrier of entry onto a
Yeah.
client, and texting is removing the barrier of entry. It's like, let's make
Yeah.
this less work on your end. So
Yeah. And it's just adapting to, I think again, is like one of the points I made when you said what's a challenge is adapting just to who wants what. And it's
yeah,
like, well, our firm only does it this way. Like I know that, if a client calls for DUI and they're interested, and if they can come into the office for the meeting, got them. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
if they're
100%.
in the
Yeah,
office, I know I'll connect with them. But, and I've feared like, "Oh, I can't do it over the phone. They have to come in." I'm like, well, they may want to do it over the phone.
yeah.
And if they're willing to pay over the phone, shut up, open the law pay and do it, you know, hey, you want to, I can send you the link and you can just fill it out and do it that way. I mean, people want to do that too. They're
Yeah,
like, can you just
yeah,
text me? Like,
yeah,
shut up, just text me. I'm like,
yeah,
okay, sure.
yeah.
So you're right. It's what clients are a little bit different, but adjusting to that, it's certainly a challenge.
Well, in terms of any other changes coming down the pike on the criminal defense end, do you kind of forecast anything being a big change in the next 10 years?
Yeah, well, I think the classic answer I could give is AI.
Yeah.
I think so. And I mean, it is going to be a big
I, I
player.
I don't even think we really can predict the
Right.
changes that are going to come from that. Like, I mean, they're coming, but I think they're going to be so much crazier than we could even dream at this point, that it's hard to,
Yeah.
like, think about all of the different ways
It's
that's
so
going to change it.
experimental at this
Yeah.
point,
Yeah.
and so it's like, hey, it's coming. It's going to change in some ways, some good, some bad. But I think that's a very classic answer I could give. But I think other stuff is, I think that in, a number of years, 5, 10 years or so, a lot of the much older practitioners or firms will phase out. And that's no indictment on older lawyers. But I guess the point in that being, I think the floor for what a really, really good law firm what it will require to be an excellent law firm is going to raise.
Yeah.
Right. So, I love the NBA. And so, like, some people say, oh, there's so much more talent nowadays than there used to be back then. And I can agree with that, maybe like on a broad scale.
Yeah.
There's broadly more talent in the league now than there was 40 years ago. So the floor it takes to be in the NBA, you have to be significantly better to at least get there.
Yes.
Right. And so I do think that and this could probably apply to law firms generally, but I do think that, it's going to be, you're not just the town lawyer who hung the shingle up and you get the business. It's, but even we're past that. Is like we're into such more of a dynamic phase. I think that the floor of what it's going to require to be excellent law firm, because for example, like in 5 to 10 years, we'll be 15 years, 10, 15 years old as our firm. And so now we're going to kind of be like, oh, we're the middle age to older firm on the block,
Yeah, exactly.
and
Yeah.
the floor of, and right now we're like, man, we're cutting edge, we're this. And the way we're doing it is so much better than the older firms. So what it's going to take, I think, 5 to 10 years from now to be excellent is, going to be higher. And this is just a small point. The second one is that yeah, a lot of the video hearings. I think that's going to be different. I pray it's different. I pray that around here, like, I mean, I love coming into work. I don't like remote work. I like being in the office, but I do hope that arraignments for a 26-mile over reckless driving can just be on video.
Yeah.
I mean, oh my goodness, or a DUI where, it's their first offense, no extenuating
Yeah.
circumstances. They've hired a lawyer. Oh my gosh, can we just do this on video? Or
Yeah.
quite frankly, can we just send a letter in? But some of those things I'm hoping will be better. I do see that the use of that because I do think it's going to take a long time for courts to get on board, at least in Virginia, on certain really advanced things. But I think video for more widespread is going to be really I'm hoping really useful, and I think it's just more efficient. It's better for everybody on certain issues, right? Like not a trial, but so many hearings. Let's just everybody do this on video. You can knock so many things out. So
Man,
I
I
hope
love
more of
that.
that.
Yeah, I think the first part of your answer in particular is just kind of like a little bit of a mind blow on my end because I think it's kind of one of those things where, you know, as you know, firms currently. I mean, you just see a lot of firms, in various parts of the state. There's a lot of this that was represented at the summit, which was kind of cool to see. But you get to see, firms that are starting to very much like focus on client experience and on what the firm culture is like. What are they trying to kind of bring to their team? Because you've
Yeah.
got a different workforce that's coming in, so you've got to provide kind of a different feel to your office to keep people kind of interested in the bigger picture of the firm, kind of branding in a very different way as opposed to like again the like even going back 20 years, hang your shingle and maybe you'll get people that kind of see that on the side of the road. Now it's kind of like, how do I tell my story to the community, whether that's through my
Hmm.
website, through online marketing, through my clients themselves that have kind of been able to experience the firm and now are kind of going out, spreading the gospel, spreading the story about the
Yeah.
firm. Like I love that image of raising the floor because it
Yeah.
can feel like, and I think this is also like an argument for anybody listening currently to like, don't get complacent because I think it's one of those things where you can feel like, man, we're really doing some things well. We've got, we've got this great website that we put together. We've got, the some great people at the office. We've got, a great client base. We're really working on how we're delivering our services. And I think that that can really kind of provide a false sense of confidence because as every new law firm comes in, they are looking at what you're doing and saying, well, I got to do better than that, right? Like, I
Yeah.
mean, I've got to figure out how to compete in this new kind of era of
Yeah.
living in the criminal defense space. So I think that's just such a cool thing. So I love that answer, raising the floor.
Yeah. I mean, definitely. And, I think that's something I'm glad that I'm here with John and we have that kind of same I guess shared desire. I see, a lawyer I really respect. I'm thinking about him right now on LinkedIn and post something that he won an award and he gets all these great reviews. And I'm like, I'm like, dude, that is amazing. And now I'm fired up. Let's keep going. Like I want us to like, let's turn it up. Let's, you know what I mean? Not to, I want both of us, him, me, and that lawyer to both do well. But I'm like, all right, let's keep going. Like he's doing great. We got to get there.
No, that's awesome. Well, I kind of as we are kind of closing the conversation here, Stephen, tell me what, I think one of the goals of this podcast really has been to raise the floor, at the local level. That really is
Mhm.
like one of the hopes that I have in terms of the podcast is that, you get to see from listening to guests on the episode, how they're doing it. What are some of the ways that they're making their business work, the way that they're operating in the courtroom, motions that they're using, how to present themselves better as a way of kind of raising the level of representation across the board. And I think that's best done at the local level. So what are any, kind of thoughts that you have on how we can improve the local criminal defense bar?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm probably the 500th person who will probably, if someone's listening to this podcast and they've gone on LinkedIn once today, they'll probably have heard this phrase, but a rising tide lifts all boats. But
Yes. Yeah.
I do think that it's, there is a fear even I see with, I got a friend who he's about 3 or 4 years more experience. He just started his own thing and he was asking me some questions. He's like, I mean, if you really don't mind me asking, I'm sorry, but like, what do you guys charge? Like, can you tell me that? I was like, yeah, it's fine. It's fine. Like there's got to be a healthy balance of like, look, what we do is what we do. We don't open our book on everything and say,
Yeah.
come like take our stuff. But I'm like, hey, if we do what we do better than anybody else, telling some parts of that isn't going to change. Like
Yes.
you could probably know exactly what Chick-fil-A puts in their sauce, does
They
with
say
everything
it.
else.
I mean, they've got it all. Like so much of what they do is like just on the internet. It's like
Yeah.
this is what we're doing.
And no one's doing anything even close, right? So, but and I know obviously like our firm, we're not Chick-fil-A and the big firms necessarily either, but it's like, hey, you don't have to open all the secrets and do all this stuff, but there may be a mutual trust, of like,
Yes.
hey, and that's tough in this profession. I get it. I mean, not everybody is well intentioned and not everybody wants to just share a couple things, and I get it. But I think that's like, hey, if you really do believe in what you're doing, then you sharing a little bit of how this helped your practice will help my clients. It's going to continue to help your clients because you're already doing it. If you're withholding it that strictly, maybe that says something about how you actually think about it and you just see them as a dollar figure. I mean,
Yeah.
if you really can't share 2, 3 small things that I'm just struggling with building my own firm or something, do you really care about clients getting good services or are you just, hoarding it? So I think there's that part. And I think one thing that, I'm sure maybe some older lawyers might hear and say, he's too young. He hasn't gotten jaded yet. But I think that, and it's not honestly just older lawyers. It's lawyers who are younger who this is the biggest thing that's been shocking to me. And I think just a little discouraging is I know criminal defense work, being a lawyer in general is very stressful. I get it. Criminal defense work, really hard, difficult clients. I get it. I mean, I don't think it's going to take me 5, 10 more years to understand that. I mean, I've done plenty already. I know that it's difficult, but I mean, man, the amount of times I'll walk in and see a lawyer going through security. Hey, man, how you doing this morning? I'm here. Let's see what kind of crap I got to deal with today. Like, hey, man, like maybe I'm catching you on a bad day, and if I
Yeah.
am, then I don't want to cast judgment, but at a broad level, I see a lot of that. And I'm like,
Yes.
man,
Yeah.
I get it. I know that it's hard. I get it. But first of all, would our clients like to hear that? No. So then what they do is they go lie to their client, act like they like them, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think it's also facing toward the bar, like the local criminal defense bar more generally and newer members of it. Why would people want to join? Why? Why would somebody want to join a firm that is like, you know, these clients suck. The work sucks. The type of cases suck. It's really like, oh wow, yeah, I can't wait. And I think that's one small thing that we've tried just in our and this practice is like we want people who are dynamic, who are it's like, look, this is a hard thing they're going through, but we're gonna step in. We're gonna dress well in the courtroom. We're gonna be positive. We're going to be professional. We're going to fight so hard that people, hopefully prosecutors, are scared a little bit when they see we're on the case. We're going to treat these security guards, clerks with such respect. We care about them. We're going to be honest with each other about what we're going through so we don't harbor these things. Like
Yeah.
we want people to be dynamic, be themselves, but we want clients to know, hey, when I talk to you on the phone and I'm excited to get your money, I'm just as excited and that energetic and into caring about your life as I am at the court hearing, at sentencing, maybe, after it when you have to do a couple of days of jail, like it's not going to change. And so I think that's one thing that it's going to help clients, but it's also going to help other lawyers be like, we hope that that's an attractive selling point from our firm when we're trying to get people out of region or wherever to come join. Is like, hey, this isn't like, look, you're going to do traffic, shut up, it's going to be horrible, but you're our mule, you're our pack mule. We're like, no, this is a team. Like, we're going to do something epic, and like this is going to be really good together. I think it's just more attractive for people in the local bar, and it can help, I don't know, foster a better kind of community amongst the local criminal defense lawyers.
That was such a great answer. I love that. I think that that's such, I mean, there's just, yeah. So again, so much to unpack from that. I just, yeah, I'm gonna have to go back and listen to that again, because I just think that's one of those things that, again, uh, you know, simple but not easy.
Right.
I think it's one of those things that it really has to be. You can't fake that stuff. Like, that's
Yeah.
not a, you can't live in that fake world. You've got to believe in it. And I think that the belief in doing all of those things well really expresses something about the mission of your firm. Like,
Mm.
there's a reason that we're doing the work that we are doing. And so, I mean, that's just such a powerful thing to kind of hear it in that, like, holistic way of all the different areas that having that kind of grander vision
Yeah.
impacts the office for you guys. That's really cool.
Yeah. No, I mean, I got to say that it's good having other lawyers around you that keep that up, because,
Yes.
no, every day I'm not feeling that.
Yeah.
It was, in fact, this week, a lot of days this week or last week too, I was just like, golly, man, I'm over it. And
Yeah.
so having good support and having a good team to pick you up, it matters.
Yeah, that iron sharpens iron kind of mentality is so
Yep.
critical in this line of work, because and the opposite is true. I don't know exactly what the analogy would be in terms of the reverse of iron sharpens iron, but if you're hanging around people that are complaining about being criminal defense lawyers all the
Yeah.
time, there's a couple of local bars where you just go in and it's like everybody is complaining, and it's like, man,
Yep.
why are you still doing this? Like, I saw you doing the same thing 10 years ago. Like, this
Yeah.
is kind of a crazy long time to be in such a negative mental headspace about your work. So, the opposite is true as well. But I love that, thought process. Get
Yeah,
around people that are loving what they do. So
for sure.
it's a great way to close it out, Steve. And thanks very much for coming on, sharing wisdom with the audience. I loved so many of the points that you made. Really practical advice that can be implemented immediately.
Well, Jake, thanks. I mean, it's been great to chat here, but also, seeing what y'all do from afar, meeting you, it's been really cool, and it's nice to know that there's other lawyers out there who are have like-minded, same vision, stuff like that. So really enjoyed it, man. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. 100% agree.